those years, like high school and into college, I remember those years more so than when I was playing professionally. As weird as that sounds, but and I think that has a lot to do with just having my goal of wanting to play Division I college golf so badly. That was it. Like ever since I was probably 14 years old, won the Alberta banter championship, so that's 14 under, and I was like, holy smokes, like there's something here. Let's just pursue it as hard as we can. What are we talking about today?
You're a lefty, eh?
Genetically smarter, I've heard. Do we need a description?
No.
Okay. So I'll play ping pong left-handed.
Yeah.
But badminton right-handed. But if I have to go like to back,
Do you switch hands?
I could switch.
I switch hands too.
Yeah.
Ping pong especially. Yeah.
So any finesse left, I think, because I eat left, but more power is right.
You throw baseball how?
Right. Hockey right.
If anyone's
That I haven't seen that much.
sorry, what? Throwing.
So he writes left-handed, but he throws right-handed.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And you're drinking left-handed. Or right, probably, depending on what it is.
Kick a soccer ball left foot.
If you do something new for the first time, do you think like, what should I do? Should I do it right or left?
No,
or
it's just natural. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever it goes to.
It's naturally illogical. And you shoot right-handed hockey.
Pinball. It's weird.
Cool.
I find it really weird when people don't golf and shoot hockey the same.
I find that.
That is like, how's that even possible? But it is there. I don't think there's a lot of them. But
Who is one?
Yeah.
Yep.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Shooting left and golfing right. But I putt left. And I played
Did you always putt left?
Yes. I putted left before I golfed right. Because I putted before I golfed. And I played pool left. My left eye, and I shoot skeet left-handed.
Oh, really?
Yes. So this is I'm left eye dominant. That should have dominant right, yeah.
I shoot pool left too.
But just
I don't know why.
yeah,
That's I just picked it up.
put your hand in a triangle. Don't close your eyes though. Put something in a frame, and then naturally draw it back to your face, and whatever eye it goes to, that's the eye you're in.
So do I keep it in the middle?
Yeah, just keep it in the middle, whichever. Yeah, you're right eye dominant, which is weird for a lefty.
You're just all fucked up.
That's recorded.
Oh. Are we just winging it?
Yeah.
Well, not really.
No, Troy's got questions.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Welcome to the show. This is,
Oh, do we have a
yeah, we got to do a, wow, it does. I figured that all out now.
No, did you?
I don't think you need the clap, but we can just do it. It's fun anyway.
Well, I wouldn't want
We
to.
should did a golf clap. A golf clap to start.
All right, we've got Ryan Werre with us here tonight. Ryan is this top amateur golfer. He's your dad in the last 2 years-ish.
Yes, Maverick is 11 months now, so just coming up on a year. So
Real estate agent, competitor. Yeah, we want to cover all that ground with you tonight and wherever else it goes.
Love
That's
it.
kind of how this works.
thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
You're excited.
Yeah, this should be fun.
Excited to be here. This is a cool setup, and you guys are doing it right. So
Yeah, we're getting like 50, 60 views.
we'll see if we can break that
There
one.
we go.
But how cool is golf that we can just sit here, talk about golf, talk about life? Like I don't think you could launch a podcast with a different sport. I really don't.
Yeah, we were talking to Tara in the clubhouse today, and Tara said that she watched her first one all the way through. She said she'd listened to some, but it was the first time she watched it, and she said, "Oh my God, I loved it. I'm a visual learner." And she goes, "But like those guys really love golf." I didn't know people love golf like that, but everybody's been on. It was like Dillon may have loved the golf the most, so that's what Dillon kind of set the bar. Say not just in shooting 58, but in the love of golf. So
Other than the people who are actually making a podcast about it, maybe.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What's your have you watched them all or listened to them all?
I have, yeah, for the most part, anyways. Yeah, especially listen to Dillon's, and then the first few that you guys rolled out there. I think I'm a couple behind, but definitely listen to Dillon's. Just and I play with him all the time, right? So but still listening to him go through that round, and I know, I mean, I could ask him what was I wearing at the Alberta Junior third round when we played together? And he'd be able to tell me, like, it's insane. And my mind doesn't work like that for whatever reason. I've heard some other people's minds don't either. Like, I couldn't tell you shot for shot in like a second round of the Canadian Mid-Am this year, like no chance. And that's an important round, right? But, you know, I could maybe tell you the cliff notes, but not, you know, shot by shot like he can. But one of the most intelligent guys on and off the course I've ever known. So I'm not surprised that his brain works like that, but I just find it really unique when you get to listen to him go through a round like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's super detailed.
Yeah, and how he was thinking about it, and it was really cool.
That's like, I talked to my brother about it, and you know, he's not a big golfer, and he listens, you know, just
Religiously.
yes. Let you know, everyone out there, like and follow.
Yeah.
Press subscribe.
That is cool.
I was had Troy. We were here talking earlier. I was trying to create an email funnel for the podcast, and Troy really hates the idea. So
It's a slam book amongst your friends to say things about your friends as golfers without them knowing in an anonymous quiz.
rate my pace of play. Rate my ability to drive
And then
the
you're going to
golf ball.
post that. You're going to see all of these things that but you don't know who actually said all of the things that swayed the number to the number.
Sure.
That there could be an outlier just trying to mess with things, but you're going to take that personally, and then you're going to constantly look around and saying, "I wonder which one of these guys."
Who was it?
Yeah,
Who was it?
but it would be healthy for friendships.
We're here about growing a podcast.
Yes,
We don't care about friendships anymore.
viewership. So yeah, anyway, my brother was saying, like, that was the thing that he took out of Dillon's, was like how, like, he knew shot for shot and this and that. And that's probably the common theme from that one, was what people pulled out of it was how he could remember every shot, yardage, wind.
Yeah, and I would say, in general, and you're going to be another a gauge for people who are listening. Identifying with elements of each person comes on, right? And so there would be very few people who would identify with Dillon's, how would you describe his analytical, all of the elements, knowing wind from, not too many people, but they would appreciate is that he thinks that way, but they wouldn't identify with that. And for every golfer that comes on, or every person that comes on, hopefully you're finding something that you either cannot believe someone thinks that way, or you can identify something with that. So I'm interested to see, when you speak today, what we would identify with you or not.
Love it.
Yeah.
You got something to lead us with.
Oh, do I? I've got lots to lead. I'm just not sure which.
You're good at that.
Yeah. You mean preparing?
No.
Yeah.
Troy's the researcher.
Well, Ryan, maybe just setting a little context for you and I to have back and forth. I've known you since you were a grade 10 kid at Eagle Butte High School. Yep. When I think back to Ryan as a high school kid, and knowing he was pursuing golf, what was different about Ryan in those days, which I think even now would be completely different, was how dedicated he was to something back then. Going to the weight room, that wasn't heard of, on his own, coming in early to get Sue Fife. You and Sue Fife were best friends in math.
20 and 30, holy smokes.
But you needed that class. You know, I have students coming now who, you know, they'll say, I want to go play college. Can I get that course for tomorrow and finish? You know, that's their preparation. But you, especially in that era, because that's 15 years ago, you were just way ahead of the norm in terms of preparation. And I have something in here about, you know, you were way ahead of going outside of our community or outside of the Alberta kind of boundaries way sooner than anybody else in Alberta even, you know, the Optimist thing in Florida, I think it was. And so when you think back to those times, that early entry seriousness, what do you remember about that and where that has helped land you today?
Sure. Those years, like high school and into college, I remember those years more so than when I was playing professionally, as weird as that sounds. And I think that has a lot to do with just having my goal of wanting to play Division I college golf so badly. That was it. Like, ever since I was probably 14 years old, I won the Alberta Banter Championship, so that's 14 and under, and I was like, holy smokes, like, there's something here. Let's just pursue it as hard as we can, right? And I sound old here, but like 15 years ago, it was way different to get down into the States and get noticed by college, especially Division I coaches. Now there's more portals, there's more access. College coaches down there kind of know like, hey, if you win some junior tour events in Canada, this is what it means. But back then, it's like they didn't know if I won 4 MJT tournaments or a CJGA tournament or played well in the Alberta Junior. They didn't. They're like, sweet, that's great, but I mean, there's more junior golfers in Texas than all of Canada, so they really don't care, right? So the way we had to kind of combat that, and Alberta Golf did a great, I would say, my age, Dillon age, and moving forward did a great job helping us figure that out too. So we would make a lot of trips to the States, go and actually play in those tournaments with those juniors from the States. And then, you know, college coaches could compare and be like, oh, okay, this is where you're finishing in our actual tournaments. And then everything else in Canada was kind of just sugar on top. But like they had no concept of field depth, right? Which is fair because they didn't have to go out of state really to figure out and get talent. So it was challenging, but that's how, you know, had to make sure everything was dotted, all the T's crossed, and it was go time ever since basically grade 9 onward into grade 12 when I ended up signing. So,
and who led all of that? So you said the dream was at 14, but who led? If you look nowadays, parents are putting kids into camps and they're doing all of those things. And I know your parents obviously are involved, but who was the mastermind behind the pursuit of all of this?
I would say, obviously, super grateful for my parents because they just said yes to everything. But for the most part, I was, right? Like I was the one that had to not figure things out, but not only perform, but be like, okay, where are these college coaches looking? How can I get exposed to them? How can I start to build a relationship with them? Who do they know, right? That knows maybe someone here. And, you know, long story short, that's kind of how I got my inside track down into San Antonio. Was my swing coach knew the director of golf at the course that UTSA plays at most days, which is kind of wild. So that's how I got a little inside track there. And then obviously went down for a visit. And once you get face to face with someone, it's way different, right? These college coaches are, you know, funneling through, you know, probably hundreds of emails and from recruits wanting to be on teams, especially at Division I level, and being able to get face to face. That's when I kind of knew, okay, that's definitely going to be different and stand out, you know, outside of anything else that I could have done.
So speaking of standing out, like, did that stand out comparatively to the rest of the youth in Redcliffe at that time?
I think so, yeah.
And so how did that feel? You know, thinking about your junior high and high school, like you, a bit of a unicorn in that sense.
Yeah, you know, at the time, I mean, I guess retrospectively, you can think like, hey, unicorn or whatever the case is. But at the time, you know, like, when 310 hit at school, you know, I was at Desert Blume, like, immediately, right? Or I was meeting up with Dillon to do, you know, a chip and putt and play 9 and, you know, go to Booster Juice and then go play another 9, like, before it gets dark. So I remember even, like, once a week, I think it was Tuesdays or Wednesdays, school would end. I think it was Wednesdays because we got out early, but I would go up to Lethbridge, do my weekly, you know, lesson with Dean Sprittle. He was a big catalyst and helped me out a lot at that time, especially, hey, here's how you word an email to a college coach. Here's how you actually, like, get in front of these people. So he was, I would say, one of the big pieces to this. I don't know if I could have done it without him, actually. Not only the golf guidance, but especially once I got down there, he was a good kind of sounding board to help me out, especially through the first year, because it's like a different world, right? So.
And were you still playing some hockey in there?
Yeah, I remember I tried to quit my grade 12 year until the first weekend when all the boys went and played a home game, and I went and watched the home game. I'm like, okay, I gotta play. So played AAA last year in grade 12, but
you just
basically warmed the bench for the whole year.
AAA on the side.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Trying not to get hurt.
yeah, exactly, pretty much. But that risk was way better than sitting around doing nothing for 6-7 months. So.
That makes me feel better about you playing AAA hockey because we've shared the ice together, and I'm like, I know you as a golfer, and I'm like, he's a pretty good hockey player. Like, so you play AAA. That's
Cool. Well,
Go ahead, Ken.
no,
Why am I having?
I don't know. Because you're the prepared guy.
So, can you speak to some of your thoughts of some of those long and short-term benefits of how you approached Division I golf or how you approached golf as a young person? So you see, I'm sure even at that time, you would have gone to tournaments in the States and here where there were external pressure from parents or whoever, knowing that you were the driver, but thinking of the long and short-term benefits you're in a career now, you're in an amateur golfer, and then in your pro career, what were some of the short and long term to that approach?
Long term comes to mind first. I would say just, and it doesn't matter what level of golf you play, but it's like a constant dose of adversity. Like no matter what level you're at, like I still think like literally every 10 minutes, like, hey, how's my game? Like, what am I going to be doing tomorrow? Like it's still ongoing all the time. I think when you play golf, like I've been playing competitive golf for 20 years now, there's a lot of setbacks. There's a lot of, missed opportunities. There's a lot of disappointment. Even in my amateur career, like tons of disappointment, right? And I think working through that and just knowing that everything's going to be okay, like that's really helped me in not only real estate, but like getting into real estate and feeling comfortable in real estate now and being, a decent realtor and doing a decent amount of volume. There's a lot of adversity that comes with being a younger agent that's just starting out too, especially I just kind of started doing it on the side at the start. And I think that's the greatest gift golf has given me is just learning how to deal with adversity, dealing with loss, dealing with disappointment. I mean, gosh, when I played professionally, it was 3 years straight of after every tournament, I'm like, I'm back to square one here. Like, what do I need to do? How do I build this back up? And you kind of get into that mode of like always looking to be better and always trying to get to a better place, not only in your golf game, but just happiness wise. Because when you're out there, especially in the professional golf world, it's essentially organized gambling. That's what it is. That's, at the mini tours levels, it's way more expensive than, it's the opposite. So if you play mini tour golf, it's more expensive than if you played on the tour. Entry fees are 5 times as much. You're not getting comped a rental car. You're out of pocket for absolutely everything, and you're playing for essentially pennies. Like only the top 4 guys are getting paid a decent amount. So like it's way more expensive, pressure's way more, and you're gonna have a lot more disappointments. Like it's brutal. It's brutal. So I would say long term, that's it. Short term benefits. Gosh, I think the short term benefits was just I got exposed to such a cool environment in San Antonio, playing 4 years of college golf there. I met so many cool people that I still am in touch with today. Like all those friendships would be probably what comes to mind. I mean, that bleeds into long term too, but just being exposed to that world is so awesome. Yeah.
Did you have, was there any pressure when you got down there in that first year to try to change your game? Like whether that was, because Dillon talked a little bit about that with the swing stuff, but even your approach to your game or your mindset? Yeah,
I was able to delay the need to change things until year 3. But one of the coolest things about university is, you could have, I think we had up to 12 guys on the team. Some years was as little as 10, but you kind of fluctuate depending on who the class is coming in. But I went down there and a lot of people don't know this, but like your scholarship is 1 year. Like it's not 4 years, it's not 2 years, it's 1. And so I was on 37% scholarship with books and they waived the out-of-state tuition fee, right? So like it wasn't cheap. And I'm like, yeah, I got 1 year. This coach hardly knows me. I kind of got it in and, he was like, yeah, we'll throw you books and 37% and no out-of-state tuition. And I'm like, okay, well, based off of how much I know my parents saved up, this ain't going to last 4 years. So like, I got to perform. And the best part about college golf, in my opinion, is that not only are you competing in tournaments, but you're competing to be on the top 5 every single day. So I remember like when you first got down there, it would be like mid-August, and we would just have qualifying rounds every single day. We'd have a 10 tournament qualifier for the first tournament. So you get down there, and it's August 20th in South Texas, and you're sweating like you've never sweated before, carrying your bag. And it was that first couple months was such an eye-opener for me, and I was able to perform 4 years down there, never missed a tournament. So I felt like not missing a tournament was one of the, feather in the caps for me, because that's a lot of consistency. Because if you slip, that coach is going to pull you for the next tournament, throw someone else in there. So it's just an ongoing competitive environment, but you're still with teammates, which is kind of weird, right? Yeah. So I think that's where there's pressure to not only perform, but if you're not in that top 5, then it's like, okay, like how am I going to bust into that top 5 to make sure I can actually get to the actual tournament, get on the plane kind of thing. And that's where I think a lot of kids that go down there, they start searching. And if you go down the wrong road, sometimes there's never coming back from it at all. Right.
Yeah. Did you find there was any, like, were you the only Canadian on the team?
There was one senior that was from Lethbridge, actually. He was another Sprittle disciple. Oh, yeah. His name's Lewis Chong. So that was helpful. I remember even going down there on my visit, Lewis kind of took me under his wing, which was nice because he was a senior or junior at the time when I went down for my visit. He didn't have to by any means, right? So I remember going down on my visit. It was kind of middle of the winter, and I had to go play 9 holes with the guys, and I hadn't touched a club in like 3 months. So yeah, good thing I was a good driver of the golf ball at that time because I just kind of hit it in the fairway. I think I shot even, and went out with the guys that night and treated me well, because it's like if the guys don't give you their blessing, like you're not on the team, right? Yeah. So, and being there 4 years, we had plenty of recruits in where we're like, hey, coach, like, no, and kid doesn't show up next year, right?
So did you get to pay that forward where another Canadian kid came in behind you?
Yeah. So Brett Hogan, good buddy of mine from Calgary, came in. I would have been, is he 2 years younger than me? So I think my junior year he came in. And same kind of thing, right? Really good kid, and obviously being Canadian, and I didn't really know him beforehand, but you kind of want to gravitate towards those guys too, right? Third year I was captain of the team, so I felt like I needed to do that role anyways. And just so happened that Brett's a really good guy, and just all the freshmen, right? And some freshmen don't make it because it's such a change. Like I'll never forget, I dropped my parents off at the San Antonio airport a couple days after I moved into the dorm, and they leave, and I'm like, holy smokes, like this is crazy. It's crazy because I was only 18 at the time.
Mm-hmm. So chasing pro golf, you've touched on it, but I think it's important to probably give some insight for all of us of what that looks like.
Sure.
So Corey and I would have, that's probably when you got to know Ryan a little better, from arm's length, because your lovely wife, Sarah, was teaching with us at the time, and so she was experiencing professional golf as well, and you were just engaged at the time.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through the decision to go pro, those 3 years? You and I had many conversations in those 3 years when you would come back home, and about what that was like, and then the decision not to continue chasing it. Yeah. Can you walk us, just talk?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and this probably started, once I got down into university, the natural progression is, okay, I want to get as good as I possibly can. I'm in the best environment. I can play year round. Let's get as good as we can in 4 years, compete with the best players in the country, and then, take that next step. That was always my thought going into it. And I would say probably 80% of Division I players, that's not the case, because they either don't want to, or they're just good golfers. They're on a scholarship, they go to school, and away they go. I was actually surprised when I got down there that wasn't the intent for the majority of players. But just as like, hey, I wanted to get a Division I college scholarship, once I got down there, I wanted to turn professional and give it a run. And I always kind of kept my word of like, hey, whenever I can't see the next level, whenever I think the next level is unattainable, I'll quit. Right. So I need to back up a little bit, because the third year in university, I actually went away from Dean Sprittle, who coached me my whole life. And I felt like I kind of plateaued. Hindsight, that's one thing that I would change. I mean, definitely a regret of mine. And started seeing a different coach, changed my grip, changed ball
Did you talk
flight.
to Max Homa at all in the last week or so?
Seriously.
Sorry, keep going. Sorry.
And well, yeah, you see guys dabble even on tour, right? Like it's crazy. Golf is nuts, right? But it's one of those things where I was like, okay, feel like I plateaued, want to hit a little further. And there was a really good, reputable guy in San Antonio. His name's Brian Gathright. Teaches Mac Meisner, who's on tour. Taught Jimmy Walker, Nota Begay. He taught Jimmy Walker before Jimmy Walker went and won the PGA, because he went to Butch. But awesome guy, great mentor of mine, and I just could never kind of get it. And I think, looking back, I wish I wouldn't have done that, because it was such a change in ball flight, position, grip. Never got really comfortable with it. And by the end of my senior year, I'd played fine, but I wasn't kind of on that upward trajectory. But I still wanted to turn pro. So, the unfortunate reality of turning pro is you need bankroll. Like, you need money. And when you come out of college, like, I had nothing, right? So that's a daunting thing, and a huge catalyst why a lot of mini tour guys just can't make it, because they don't have enough funding. So long story short, we can get in that later. But yeah, so my years were like, literally in the springtime, I'd go to Canadian Tour Q school, never made it through the Q school there. So I would chase the Monday qualifiers when it ran through BC and Alberta and into Saskatchewan sometimes. And then end of summer, I'd go down to North and South Dakota, play the Dakotas tour. So I'd literally hop in my vehicle and I'd be gone for 6-7 weeks at a time. Like, Dakota's tour was the best mini tour I've ever played on, because you go to these small towns, North and South Dakota, and it's like the main event of this small town for the whole summer. It's like the fair almost, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of billets, there's a lot of pro-ams, you get to meet a lot of cool people, there's good players. and they paid out a decent amount. Like I made most money I made in my mini tour career, which isn't a lot, but it was mostly all on the Dakotas tour. And you can get into a good playing rhythm, because I think that's one of the bad things about professional golf for mini tour players is you don't play that much unless you have $200,000 a year to spend and travel and play every week. A lot of mini tour players are playing like twice a month and trying to save up all their earnings to get into the Q school, because the Q school is going to cost them $8,000, like legitimately. At the time, to get into the Canadian Tour Q school, it was $4,000 just to get in, just for the entry fee. And then you're flying to Crown Isle or on the coast and you're staying there for a week, rental car. Like it's insane how expensive it gets. Then come fall, I'd hop down back to San Antonio or to Houston. I had a buddy living in Houston and play the mini tours down there, and then come home for Christmas time. And then in the new year, I'd hop over to Phoenix, get a couple month lease or sleep on a buddy's couch. I did that for one winter too. And that's an awesome little hub. Phoenix golf is fun, but the competition is insane. And so did that for a couple of years. And then the third year, and I probably played for a year too long. Like I probably knew within my second year, there's a few moments where looking back, I'm like, you shoot 6 under, 7 under for a 2-day event and you don't make anything. It's like, go home, right? So there was that. And then just playing with a few guys that maybe had some web status at the time. It's Corn Ferry now, and watching them play, and I'm like, holy smokes, like these guys have no regard for par. They'll play in a sunshine tour.
Neither do we.
Yeah, the other way, right? And
par can be disregarded.
Yeah, and even just being around, in Phoenix, watching some of those guys come through and actually kind of get to the next levels or get some status. I'm like, okay, like these guys have some status on the Canadian tour. They're kicking my teeth in. Like, do you really want that? And I'll never forget, I was at Legacy in Phoenix on the range, and there was this one old guy that came hitting balls. He would hit balls all day long. Like he just like, sun's just got his skin. He's just like burnt basically, like permanently. And I'm like, gosh, like it's literally me 30 years from now. Like I could chase it, but like it's not gonna happen. Like Ryan, it's not gonna happen. So that's where kind of cut that tie, and I was at peace with it. I mean, it took a while to adjust, obviously. Having a childhood dream, like I kind of call it like your pilot light going out. It's tough to adjust. Like you don't really know what to do, and so that was a strange time. Fortunately, Sarah, my fiance at the time, I don't know how she did it, because I would literally take off for months at a time. Like, I don't know where I'm going. And she's very type A, right? So she wants to kind of...
She worked really hard. She was...
Yeah. So yeah, I super grateful for those times, though. Like, I remember the Dakotas tour, I had a little Mustang, and I'd just hop in that and go. No plans. I know where the first event is and go from there. I'd have a couple lined up and see how far my money went that month. And if I made some cash, then I'd keep playing. And yeah, I thought they were good times. They were fun times. Obviously wish... that ceiling wouldn't have hit, but it did, and I'm happy I pulled the plug when I did, because I still see guys, I still know a lot of guys that are still chasing it, and they're on the Canadian tour, and they're not making money like at all. They're losing quite a bit,
and opportunity costs for a career and life and all of those parts.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and even I was looking at the whatever they call it now, the America's Tour, which is the Canadian Tour. None of those guys outside the top 5 are actually breaking even. And even I looked at the Corn Ferry, if you're not in the top 50 on the money list in Corn Ferry, like you're literally not. Like $100,000 a year is nothing to spend traveling and playing golf professionally. Nothing. It's nothing.
So you don't have to dive in this, but when you talk about sponsorship, and Dillon talked about having to do it on your own dime does not work. And are you okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a big part of my story, right? Like, a lot of, I don't know if viewers would know the name Bill Yuill, but absolute, legend in the business world in Southern Alberta and Western Canada, really. And I was fortunate enough when I was kind of planning turning professional. This would have been probably graduated university in 2014. So it would have been kind of springtime once I came back from school. Sat down with Mr. Yuill, and I kind of had I came as prepped as I could, because I'm thinking, okay, I need to
kind of like everybody tonight.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I need to get some funding for what I was hoping for, the Canadian tour that summer, right? And my parents gave me some money because I didn't rip through all their reserves for my university, which was great. So I had a little bit. but I knew it wasn't going to last that long. And I felt like if I wanted to give it a run, you know, I need some type of safety net, right? If you just see the bank account at 20 grand and then you see it at 18, and then like I knew that was not conducive to good golf, right? And so I knew long term I needed something more. And I sat down with Mr. Yuill, explained to him, and the guy had never met me before, never at all.
So, how did the setup happen?
The intro?
Yeah.
So it was through Kelly Risling. Actually, Kelly got me that initial appointment. Kelly, actually, he told me that he was talking with Mr. Yuill way back in the day, probably 100 years ago, when Kelly was thinking of turning professional. And that never happened. That's a long story. Riz, you know, he can tell stories for days. But so that was, he kind of knew Mr. Yuill. That's how I got the in. And then I had a few meetings with Mr. Yuill. I thought he was just going to shut me down. Like, who am I to come ask for money from a stranger, right? And so I did my research as much as I could and went into the meeting. And he didn't say no. So that was good. And he's like, well, come back in a week. I got to think on it, talk to some people. And he's like, in the meantime, can you do like a detailed budget of the Canadian Tour for this summer and how much it would cost? And I'm like, yep, no problem. So I remember building out this spreadsheet with my limited capabilities of Excel, and literally from everything from, you know, mileage, you know, hotels, if I would split the room with, you know, a certain guy this week or whatever the case is, right? It was a long spreadsheet, totaled $48,000 at the time for whatever it was, 9-10 events, I think it was, Canadian Tour from go to West Coast to East Coast. And sat down with Mr. Yuill the next week and showed him the spreadsheet. He was really happy with it. And I'll never forget this. He just looked at me and said, yeah, sounds good. I'm like, I was ready to sell my soul, because a lot of mini tour guys, they go, you know, they basically will either sell shares of themselves,
Right.
be like, hey, you know, if you want to take 20% of me, that's fine for whatever 20, you know, but I would have to then pay you back after my expenses.
They stitch it in blood, like they
Yeah,
carve it.
exactly. Yeah. And forever grateful for Mr. Yuill, because, you know, obviously he was hoping that I would make it and there might be some return there, but never was it anything signed. Like, he didn't say, you know, you owe me this money back or anything like that. He just did it out of the goodness of his heart for whatever reason. And so yeah, he was my sole backer for those whole 3 years, essentially. So
Well, I remember you and I talking after a year or two, and you were having some of those feelings about whether you'd pursue it or keep going or not. And you were saying, you know, like, I don't know if I can do this again. And you had talked to Mr. Yuill again, and he said, like, he wants me to keep going. And I'm not sure I can, in good faith, do that, because I don't know if I have it in me. And so it was him as the person encouraging you versus you saying, can I have some more money?
Yeah. And, you know, looking, and I know some viewers may say, oh, $4,000 a month, like you're good to go. Well, you know, for example, you go down to Phoenix and you're into an apartment for, you know, $1,000 a month at best, maybe 900 if you're splitting a 2-bedroom, and then plus your food, your entry fees for a mini tour event at the time, I can't imagine what they are now, was, you know, probably $1,000 to $1,200 per event
For a 1 or 2 day?
For that usually be a 2 or 3 day event, right? And then plus you have to think about, okay, well, you have, you know, your vehicle expenses, you have your, you know, your eating, your traveling, all this stuff. Like $4,000 does not go. That's 2 events a month.
And what do they pay out? Like,
not much. So those, you know, depending on what tour, a win would make you $6,000, $8,000, depending. It really depended. When I say organized gambling, it depended on how many guys signed up.
Yeah.
So you get a crappy golf course or something, or, you know, a course that isn't in great shape, and you only get 50 guys signing up. Like, literally, you have to finish top 3 to make anything. Right.
So it's really number of entries gets put in the pot.
Yep. Ran by one guy, most of it. Dream Chasers Tour, now that I'm thinking of it, that was the tour that a lot of guys played on. Ran by one guy. And it was literally, you sign up and they'll give you the draw the day before with the purse amount, and they'll pay out the top. It was always paying out the top third of the field. But even, you know, if you're just in that top third, you're not making much.
this sounds like Dale Vallally's whole world.
That's right.
Dude, we're putting him in every episode.
Yeah. Sponsor of the pod.
When you came up with that budget for Mr. Yuill, did the number surprise you, or did you kind of have an idea that it was going to be 48?
I was surprised he said yes, but I knew I knew the number was going to be about that.
Yeah.
I talked to guys, you know, and they said, if you legitimately, and this was back in 2014, if you legitimately want to make a run at professional golf, it's minimum $100,000 a year, minimum. And that was pretty much it. Like, 48 grand plus some money. I got a little bit of cash from Kelly and Denise Booker of Redcliffe. They're
Oh, I'm
good
related.
Redcliffe
It's my
support.
cousin.
Really? No shit. Oh, yeah. So you basically gave me money. And, a little bit of savings from the parents there. And then plus, if you make a little bit, off of playing. But it's crazy how you can burn up. I can't imagine what it would be. Those guys that are playing the Americas tour, you play in Canadian tour and then go down to Latin America. I can't imagine. It's crazy.
Did you win any events?
No, nothing professionally. No.
So that pilot light, my sense in following you the last few years is maybe you were able to relight it around the notion of competitive golf.
Yeah.
Is that accurate? Or?
Yeah. Yep. And so I quit playing in 2017, and the Bill Yuill story goes on because at the time I was like, now this is year 3, and I think I'd missed, probably push this in back of my memory somewhere, but I think I missed Canadian Tour Q School again. I remember coming home and I'm like, I'm done, or whatever. I might have played Dakota's Tour that summer. Yeah, that's right. Played Dakota's Tour that summer, knowing that I was going to be done basically. So this is in the fall of 2017. Sat down with my meeting with Mr. Yuill. I met him every a couple months here and there when I was at home, and I just said, listen, Mr. Yuill, thank you so much for everything. I'm kind of done. I really don't know what to do. Is there any chance you have a position somewhere in your, like, I would have went to Everett. I would have went to, wherever. I didn't care. Like, just plop me somewhere so I can land on my feet a little bit. And he's like, well, yeah, just come work for me at corporate office, like right in Medicine Hat. I'm like, serious? Like I'll do anything. Like I said, I'll work for free the first month. Like, I really don't care, just to figure out what I can actually do to help out with anything. And so super grateful for him, not only in the support, but also kind of helping me through that transition, because that was a terrible time. Terrible. Yeah. So, yeah.
What degree did you get from school?
Degree in communications. So started out, I was going to go the business route until I hit my first accounting class. And then I was like, that's not for me. And so I went to financial advisor. We had one for just the athletes. I basically said, like, hey, like, give me the easiest. Whatever's easiest, whatever is in the mornings, give me that. Because, go to a couple classes in the morning maybe, and then golf course in the afternoon. I didn't want to have a class at 1 o'clock because I wanted to be out at the golf course by noon till dark, essentially. And he's like, yeah, communications, you'll be good to go. And for whatever reason, that kind of fit me. I would way rather write an essay than I would, look at a math problem. So communications found super easy. And then all of a sudden I, fast forward, whatever that was, 8 years, I'm director of communications for Mr. Yuill's company. And I'm like, oh, there we go.
And his emails.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, that's right.
All right, that's a wrap on part 1 of our episode with Ryan Werre. Got to hear how his college career started and how he made his way back to the amateur ranks. We're looking forward to part 2 next week. We're going to talk a little bit about some tournament golf. Join us next Friday